So let's go back to the hat. I know you're not a Penn State alum, but you're right near the university. So what drives the apparel?
Yeah, so Williamsport, Pennsylvania, which is where our facility is located, where I was born and raised.
Home of the Little League World Series.
Home of Little League World Series, which the chaos starts here in about another 2 weeks. My dad was a huge Penn State fan, and he does not have a college degree as well. But growing up, I was going to Penn State football games as young as I can remember. And up until he retired in 2018, I don't think he missed a home Penn State game in over 42 years.
Wow.
So, ironically as well, I was born January 2nd, 1983. And 1982, Penn State won the national championship. And the celebration of that national championship is what put my mom into labor. So there's deep roots when it comes to Penn State, although nobody in the family has attended Penn State University.
Fair enough. But you're big supporters of them.
We are. We have season tickets. We probably get to 3 or 4 home games per year. Donate to different projects that are going on around the university and try to stay involved in that community as much as we can.
Yeah. So what I just heard was when Indiana goes to Penn State, I'm not going to talk about the potential outcome of the game, but that means I have an avenue to come and hang out in that small little stadium of yours.
Yeah, small.
I've never been. I've never been to an actual Penn State football game, but I have driven past the stadium. And as an IU guy, and you compare football programs simply by the physical structure, it's like comparing JV to varsity. It's a pretty cool sight to see.
So I think the stadium currently holds just over 108,000. And it's an awesome environment to see a college football game in. And back to your original question, when IU comes to town, you guys have tickets and a place to sit.
Awesome. Appreciate that. I actually have this will date me and maybe make you feel slightly older. One of my daughters is now at the University of Tennessee, and she'll be a sophomore in a couple weeks. Went down to a home football game down there. Of course, SEC country, it's all about football. And driving up to their stadium, I was like, holy shit, looks like an NFL stadium. Went to the game, and to your point, that's why I'm more intrigued to go to a game at Penn State because the atmosphere was nuts.
It's pretty electrifying.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, we'll have to take you up on that. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Industrious Podcast. Thank you all for joining us from wherever you get your podcasts, or if you're joining us on the Accessa YouTube channel, thank you for doing so. We look forward to any comments that you guys may have, and don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, hit the little subscribe button. It won't cost you a single penny. Hit the little notification bell so you guys can be alerted when new episodes like this one drop, and let's get rolling. All right, today's guest, Mr. Seth Alberts of the Ralph S. Alberts Company, as you can clearly see, in the great state of Pennsylvania. Seth, welcome to the Industrious Podcast.
Appreciate you guys having me.
Why don't you give our viewers and listeners a little background info on yourself?
Sure. So myself, I'm a third generation owner of our family business. The business was incorporated in 1963. So ironically, just a few weeks ago, we had a celebration here amongst our local communities celebrating our 60th year of business.
Nice. Congrats.
Appreciate that. We are a multifaceted custom molding company. So my grandfather actually started the business in the basement of his house. And at the time, he was a material sales rep, selling epoxies, resins, things of that nature, but also had a tool, jig, and die background from his days in the military. He called on Piper Aircraft, which is located in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania, about 25 minutes from our facility currently, and knew an engineer there and went to sell them materials. And they actually countered and asked if they could use his tooling knowledge to build molds and start utilizing the polyurethane foam material that he was selling to make crash pads for the steering columns of the Piper Cubs. So he went back to the basement of his house, built 4 or 5 molds, started making crash pads for Piper. It just so happened that the engineer at Piper knew a maintenance manager at Hershey Park and knew that they were having problems with the upholstery on their fume boat rides. And so he made a call to them and started making foam padding for their amusement park rides. Now, today, 50% of our gross business involves making all the seating and padding devices for the amusement park industry. So there's really not a roller coaster thrill ride anywhere in the world that we don't do work for. And since then, it's really blossomed through mostly organic growth up until this point, into serving multiple industries, utilizing multiple different molding processes, from injection molding, hand cast silicones. We just recently brought brand new EVA technology in-house. So we're constantly looking to fulfill niche markets that a lot of other companies don't even want to touch.
Tell us something that I wouldn't already know about the business.
I get excited when people come to tour our facility, because we really pride ourselves in being a one-stop shop, from design consultation all the way through full production. So oftentimes people don't know our full array of capabilities till they actually get touring through our facility and our location. One of the cool things that I don't think a lot of people recognize Seth Alberts for is we do a lot of work in the medical simulation industry.
Yep.
So we manufacture all of the internal skeletal components and outer skins for a baby, a pediatric boy, an adult male, a pregnant female, a geriatric simulator, and multiple simulators that get sold to the different armed force divisions to train on tourniquets, tracheotomies, things of that nature. So,
you mentioned that about half the business is tied to the amusement park industry, and called a layperson who goes to an amusement park or a thrill park, they're not thinking about the nuts and bolts of how these components in these rides got here. They're there to be a guest and have a good time. And my wife kind of makes fun of me being, in a obviously also a manufacturing environment on the coating side. The nerd in me is when I go to a restaurant, I'm checking out the finish on the tables and things like that. And I get the solid eye roll from my wife and kids. But you kind of just touched on, my question was going to be, what's the other 50%? And you started to answer that. How did you guys diversify ultimately from what was a pretty solid amusement park focus into growing the business, as you mentioned, organically into some of those other industries?
And diversification is a key word when I think you describe our success, because although the amusement park industry makes up a big chunk of our business, the other 50% is diversified over multiple industries and product lines. And I think that goes back to my comment on really operating within in niche markets, and oftentimes, and excuse my language, but we do the shit that nobody else wants to touch, and we're good at it. And so I think that's where some of that organic growth came from, is just through word of mouth. Customers over the years couldn't find somebody to produce what they wanted to bring to market. And we said, oh, yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really been embracing that mentality of being solution-based. You know, I often, when we sit down in meetings with our management team, I think there's a sign even on the wall in the conference room that for every one complaint, you must bring 2 solutions. And I think we try to carry that mentality throughout, you know, our whole business development aspects as well, is find a way to serve markets or customers that nobody else is doing.
Certainly. Yeah, I think you might have just copied our sort of internal unofficial tagline.
Yeah.
Well, 60 years is a great achievement. So again, congrats on that. I do have to ask you though, so it's an interesting question when someone comes into a family business, or I often get asked maybe by younger kids coming out of college if they have the opportunity to do that. Typically I'll tell them either go do something else first, or go to a different company, maybe it's in the same industry first, and really decide on someone else's dime. Is this really what you want to do? You're going to make some mistakes. I mean, we all made mistakes in our 20s, you know, make some mistakes on someone else's dime and then maybe come in. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. What did you always know that you wanted to come into the family business? Or if you didn't, when did that, when did that switch flip, if you will?
So it's a good question. I mean, you guys know as well, being involved in a family business and with family, that business never stops for us. Like, I remember as a kid, I'd get done with ball practice, or I'd come home, and even the conversations at the dinner table were dominated by things that were going on at work. And then growing up through high school, my dad really encouraged me, or I should say pushed or even forced me to work in the factory during the summer when I was off from school. And during those summers, I did, in fact, develop the mindset that I didn't think I wanted to come back to business. And he also encouraged me to, as you said, to kind of go explore other avenues. And I think that encouragement really is what finally drove me to attending the University of Kentucky and seeking out my accounting degree. And so when I graduated, I worked for an accounting firm down in Lexington for a couple of years, but I knew at that point in the back of my mind that I was ready to come back. And I love the entrepreneurial side of it. Even though most of our growth has been organically, it's been organically by bringing in new technologies or new processes. And that operational side is really where I feel I personally excel and what I enjoy doing the most. So I think in the back of my mind, I knew I would always come back in, but it just took me a little while to confirm those thoughts.
Yeah. So now I have to ask, why Kentucky?
So another funny kind of sports story. I was always a Kentucky basketball fan from the time I was a little kid. I know, you guys.
Oh boy, gosh, bandwagon, man.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you say that because it started. We have a March Madness family basketball pool. Every March, the entire family gets together. All the teams that are in the tournament get thrown into hats, and we randomly pull teams out for each bracket. And just so happened, when I was old enough to actually understand what was going on in the tournament and starting to pay attention to sports, it was 1996. I actually drew Kentucky that year, and they won the national championship. So I won a family pool, and from that point forward, I was UK basketball fan.
Oh, Rick Pitino.
Yeah, we don't mention his name anymore now.
Right.
Well, how are they going to? I guess the question is, if you had to pick one game to go to, Penn State football or UK basketball, where's the allegiance? I mean, one's obviously a lot of childhood nostalgia. You know, you live nearby. Then the other one's your alma mater.
So I would say UK basketball games at Rupp Arena are as electrifying as football games at Beaver Stadium. But if I had to pick one, I probably would go to a Penn State football game. And I don't think there's anything comparable in the sports world to a whiteout game at Beaver Stadium at night. It's insane.
Yeah, it does look pretty awesome on TV. I mean, it's pretty cool.
It's an unbelievable experience. I mean, most of the time you can't even hear the person talking to you directly next to you. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah, all 28,000 IU football fans at a busy game would, someday, maybe.
I do think we just saw the UK basketball out of conference schedule, and I think we may be getting IU back on the schedule this year.
Yeah, I know Mike Woodson has been working on that. I mean, he's an old school former IU player and all that, and he's like IU and Kentucky should play each other every single year. Like that should be a guaranteed thing for both sides. And so I think they're trying to figure out, okay, how can we bring this back together again? And whether that's this year's in Lexington, next year's in Bloomington, the third year they find a neutral site or whatever. I don't know. But I think it'll come back together again. I think all the fans on both sides, I think, want that. So we'll see.
I hope so. There's a lot of history there.
Yeah, agreed. What would you say as a third generation business owner and leader? What is the biggest challenge or challenges you see today?
By far, the biggest challenge for me personally was earning the respect of our employees, and more so our more tenured management team coming back into the business. And honestly, that took me quite a bit of time to achieve. And I couldn't achieve it through communication or words. It had to be done through action. And I think the real turning point for me was in 2011. The oil and gas industry was moving into the Northeast because of the Marcellus Shale pretty hot and heavily. And I looked at trying to figure out how we could get our business involved in that industry, because we knew it was going to be a quote unquote, gold boom. And I spun off a new company or a sister company and developed a spray polyurea containment liner. And that business or that division in a 3-year period grew into a $5 or $6 million business almost overnight. And I think when the management team involved on the manufacturing side saw not only the success we developed from scratch with our own unique product, I think they also saw the motivation and the dedication that I had to continue to grow the business versus sitting back and riding coattails and taking it easy. But that was by far, in my personal opinion, the biggest challenge that I faced so far in my career.
Yeah, so you basically, or it's a good segue into my second question, which is, and one thing I've noticed in you, But going back to the risk, if you will, of multiple generations in and trying to earn the respect of others, knowing that they could see you saying, well, he's just going to come in and put it on cruise control and just kind of let things ride. But you haven't done that. What do you feel like sets you apart from someone like that, which you basically kind of just answered, but really is, do you see that you just have that constant drive, to some extent, kind of a never satisfied kind of individual, and the understanding of there's always going to be better ways and different ways of doing things. Even that answer of, well, this is the way we've always done it, is probably something that makes your skin crawl. It may have worked great for 15, 20, 40 years, but now a new technology is out that will make it more efficient or better or all the above. And when you see an opportunity, and if you just start doing some due diligence and it makes sense, you're willing to go after it and try and seize it.
Yeah, so a couple of comments there. I think two of my favorite quotes that I always reference when we talk about growth opportunities in business, one of them is adapt or die. If you're not constantly looking for ways to improve and to find better efficiencies and new technologies and automation, you're eventually going to get lost in the dust. And although maybe a little harsh, the other one I think I took it from a Navy SEAL book, is moderation is for cowards. And so if you talk to my wife, my kids, my coworkers, whoever, most of the time they'll tell you that I'm running 30 miles per hour with my hair on fire. But that's what I enjoy. Like if I was sitting around with nothing to do or in that cruise control mode, I would be miserable. So I think that concept of never being satisfied, although that can be dangerous sometimes, I also think it's a driving factor and why I'm constantly looking for the next thing.
Yeah. Was that second quote, moderation is for cowards, was that a David Goggins thing?
It might have been.
Sounds like him. Although there's probably a few other words he put in there.
Oh, I'm sure.
That might also be why Vince made mistakes in his 20s.
A few. Ish. Let me ask you this. I referenced earlier when I have the chance or opportunity to talk to, let's say, kids just come out of school or about to graduate who have the opportunity to go into family business. If you were talking to the 20 to 22-year-old you today, or John and Jane Doe who's about to graduate and has the opportunity to go into a family business, what advice might you give them?
That's a good question. And I would probably approach it similar to how my dad did, by encouraging those to go out and kind of find their own pathway. But I think I would do so more vigorously. And when I say that, I mean push them even harder than my dad did to find something else. And I don't have any regrets. But I do, if I look back in hindsight, wish I would have maybe taken a few years off prior to coming back to explore more so some of my hobbies, whether it was going down in the Keys and being a fly fishing guide or going out west and being a hunting guide for a few years. But I have a 10-year-old son. I know that's not a 22-year-old. But every year we do those little cards on their first day of school about what do you want to be when you grow up. And every year for the last, I think, 4 years, as long as I can remember, he says, I want to be running a family business. And so I think to him, when that question comes up, and my encouragement to him, if that ever does become a reality for him and for us as a family, would be to go explore some other things before you come in, because at least for me, once I came in, it was chaos from day one, organized chaos from day one. And it hasn't slowed down ever since. In fact, it's just gotten more chaotic, probably.
So you're going to give him the King Jafar Coming to America talk to his son.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. People ask, how did you get involved in the family business? And I joke, but it's really not entirely a joke that you get sucked in. Because once you're in, and it's not a bad thing, but once you're in, it's 100 miles an hour nonstop.
And it's the same thing when I was a kid. I mean, as a family business owner, when you leave the facility at 4 or 5 o'clock at night, it doesn't stop.
Mm-mm.
You know, the last thing I'm doing before I shut the TV and light off at night is seeing if I have any emails that I need to respond to. And it's the very first thing I do at 5:30 in the morning when I wake back up. So it's just, it's a lot. And for somebody that's younger and doesn't realize that yet, I would just, highly encourage them to go out, do something a little more relaxing before jumping in with 2 feet.
Yeah, certainly. We just were sort of backwards looking. Now let's be forward looking. What are you seeing the rest of this year and early next year, since it's already August, which is hard to believe. What's your crystal ball look like for you guys on your end? And in order to achieve the things you may see coming in call it the near term, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're going to have to get through in that same period?
So we talked a little bit offline, but we currently have one of the largest backlogs that we've seen since pre-COVID. We do not see any signs of any recession coming in to at least impact us a great deal. And if you would ask me that question 3 months ago, I probably wouldn't have answered that the same way. I would have been a little bit more apprehensive and cautious. Our biggest challenge is being in a smaller community that is dominated by the manufacturing sector. We're all fighting for the same labor market. And Williamsport as a community is challenged right now with lacking affordable housing to be able to go out and recruit people to move into the area for business opportunities. So I know there's a lot of local development going on right now to try to change that trend. But we're in rapid growth mode right now. We've brought in some new technologies over the course of last year. I just pulled the trigger on an adjoining property. It's an additional 4.5 acres and 20,000 square feet of additional manufacturing space to expand our FRP or our fiberglass capabilities.
In painting department.
Let's say that again.
In painting department.
That's right, and painting department. Shout out to those Accessa and coatings, the best on the market. I think we've been using the Accessa paint for 25 plus years.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for that.
Our biggest challenge has been and still will be in the immediate future will be labor challenges, labor shortages.
Yeah, and because of that shortage and everyone else going after the same pool, that's just driving the price of the labor up as well.
And that's what I think we've had hourly wage increases a dozen times in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's really forced us to look at automating our processes, which then again requires additional capital investment, because essentially that's requiring, new equipment.
Yeah, we noticed that last August we went to a large trade show down in Atlanta, saw several customers that we knew there, but also they kind of separate into segments or different sections, and the machine section, if you will, was way busier than it's ever been. And companies that were, not massive companies, we're looking at automation equipment for two reasons. One, the labor shortage. It's like, okay, I can't find people, but my business is still booming. I've got to find another way of making parts or making the widget that I make. Or two, the technology's gotten better. It's gotten a little less, it's not cheap, but it's gotten less expensive. And so a small to medium-sized business can actually afford it now and says, okay, hey, if I have to invest $250,000 in this one machine that's going to replace the 3 to 5 people, not replace, but that will take the role of 3 to 5 people that I can't hire anyway, and it's going to work 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, or whatever their shifts are, that $250 is going to be, the ROI on that's going to be real quick. And we've seen just multiple examples of that. And so you always talked about it and heard about it, but now it's really starting to happen and pick up. The hard part of it, though, is they place the POs for the machines. And there's so many people buying them that the back order's like, yeah, you'll get it in like 18 months. It's like,
no, we ordered 2 pretty large pieces of equipment, which are both newer technologies for us over the last year and a half, and our lead times were 14 to 16 months.
Yeah. And you just got to figure out throughput in the meantime.
Yeah. Which for us, unfortunately, for a lot of our people, has been a tremendous amount of overtime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then you're faced with that challenge of potentially burning people out as well.
All right, cool. Any questions for us?
I would ask you guys the same questions in your business. Just quickly, what are your main challenges, and what have you guys done in the last year or two to, kind of tackle them and find new solutions?
Yeah. It's like an echo chamber, really. Outside of the supply chain finally starting to look better, a little bit more consistent. The biggest issue for us is the same as you. It's finding good people, keeping good people, which we've been successful at, but it's taken a whole lot of creativity, and the price of poker's gone up. And how do you can't just throw money at someone and say, okay, I need to keep you happy. Here's more in your paycheck, and you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, because that only lasts so long before you, as you mentioned, they hit burnout. And then, like any of us, we get burnout. There's no productivity. And then it just sort of spirals downhill from there. So it's been a function of balancing wage growth that is manageable, both for the employee, but also from the fiscal health of the company, because there's only so much that can be, like they say, bad news rolls downhill and it rolls uphill. It travels both directions. And so there's only so much. You want to absorb as much as you can because you want to remain competitive in the market with pricing, but there's only so much absorption you can handle before you've got to pass things on. You've got the external pressure from supply, raw materials, finished goods, things like that going up. You've got the internal pressure of wage growth. So those costs are rising. Commercial insurance, all the fun, cool stuff about being a business owner.
Those are the meetings I try to avoid. I have somebody call me in the middle of them so I can sneak out of them.
Yeah, commercial insurance and health insurance. It's like, oh yeah, your premiums are going up 20%. You're like, well, yeah, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm like, okay, well, that's awesome. So it's the same. We're not immune to any of that stuff. And it doesn't really matter what level of the supply chain you're in, or what industry you're in. We are feeling all of that, and I think we've done a good job. Our management team in particular, and really our whole team, of providing feedback, has done a good job of saying, okay, here are some ways to be creative by adding some benefits that, yes, on paper they cost money, but in reality, the return is massive. Where, we have a program we call the third program, and the third Friday of the third month of every quarter, the entire company shuts down, and it's a paid day off. It's over and above vacation, holiday, PTO. It's a set day that like I said, the company shuts down, and so it's 4 additional days off where you want to do nothing and just have some R&R, go for it. You want to try, what's coming, so you want to schedule doctor appointments, dentist appointments, things like that around it, you can do that. And it's just, it's just kind of like it's a little tiny thing, but if you can do a lot of little tiny things, they add up, and you just hope, like, when you're going home at night and you're like, I hope I'm doing it right. And I think if you can look at the tenure of some of your team members, that would be the proof of the pudding right there.
Sure, absolutely.
So
you guys have always been a phenomenal partner to us, and the one thing that I can really appreciate is you've been very proactive with your communication. So even throughout COVID, when supply chains got tough and things were difficult, we at least knew what was going on, which would allow us to plan our production needs. And very, very grateful for that relationship and the team that you guys have constructed to help serve your customers.
Well, thank you for that. We appreciate your guys' business, and over 20 plus years, obviously we certainly have our challenges that we all go through, and do the best we can to make it, I don't know, not enjoyable. That's not the right word for sure, but we work our way through it the best we can, and we appreciate you guys, like you said, being a true partner, not just a vendor-customer relationship. I think that about wraps things up. We will certainly take you up on that IU Penn State offer. I'll take a look at the schedules, and whether that's this year or next year, we'll figure that out for sure. And reciprocate. So if you ever want to come to beautiful Bloomington, Indiana, there's plenty of tickets available. So we will have no problem finding you however many tickets you need. So with that said, thanks for your time today. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks for sharing about your business and yourself. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. Enjoyed it.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Thank all of you guys for joining us on this episode of the Industrious Podcast. We appreciate you all for taking the time out of your day to join us from wherever you get your podcasts or on the Accessa YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, guys, be industrious.